everyone. It's a little bit after 12:30 here on this Thursday. I wanted to take a little time to jump on our digital platforms and talk more about the risk for shedding here. So it looks like right now, just kind of making sure things are streaming as they are, and I think we are streaming everywhere. So if you could, let me know first off if you can hear me, and then second off, if you are able to let me know where you're watching from. I always love to see that. Not sure if I'm on Facebook. That doesn't seem to be working right now. Let's see. Well, yeah, it looks like it's... Yep, it looks like we are on Facebook here, so that's good. Yeah, seeing some Facebook comments coming in. Chad's checking in from Matt Toon, and so as long as you're able to hear me here, seems like maybe the chat between the program we use and Facebook is a little bit off, but we know we're on Facebook. I've just seen it, and some of you are commenting in on that. So we're going to take some time here and go through what to expect with our chance for severe weather as we go into Friday evening here. We're getting into that 24 to 30 hour window ahead of the event here, and there are still some questions about how things evolve, but certainly the ceiling is really high on this particular system. And I think as well as we kind of haven't had severe weather in 6 months, maybe a little bit more than that. And so we've become a little complacent with the quietness around here. And so the fact that we've got this at a fairly decent threat is something where I think maybe that's adding to a little bit of the uncertainty with folks and whatnot. So we're going to break it down, no frills, tell you what we expect. Before we walk through things, though, I do want to walk through a couple of safety tips because, again, this is a refresher course. This is a chance for us to just kind of remember what is going on there. Seems like, especially with the age of social media and digital platforms, everyone has a chance to get onto Facebook and say what they want. And so if some of you maybe are struggling with storm anxiety, you're like, I don't know what to do. This is really scary. Storms aren't something I want. Maybe you've had a bad experience with storms. Then this is what a list that I've got for you, some things that you can do here. And I think it's important to talk about this because it is a thing, right? Storms can be scary. Even if it's kids, if it's you had a bad experience, you just are bothered by them. You're seeing crazy, scary things online. Here's some things to think about. You have a plan, right? I don't know anyone who doesn't fall asleep at night because they're worried about a house fire. We got smoke detectors, right? We have a plan, and we know what to do if something happens. Same thing for severe weather season. Get a plan. Have a safety kit ready. You can put it snacks, a bottle of water, bottle of wine. I don't care, in your basement. Something when the storm hits, you can just kind of relax and wait for it to pass on by. And as you have that, then you're ready to go for that with a moment notice here. Learn more about storms. Knowledge, right? Knowledge beats fear. What's the difference between a watch and warning? Consider this spring, the National Weather Service is doing the Storm Spotter training class. That's a great way to get some knowledge. And have at least 2 to 3 ways to get weather warnings, right? You want to be able to get those alerts so you know to take action. WCIA 3 Weather Call is one example. The weather app is another one. You can download a NOAA weather radio. There's different things like that that can be helpful for it here. Also, track those radar updates and follow us. We'll be in the studio. We'll be watching things as those storms roll on in. And if there is severe weather, we're live, right? We take these things pretty serious ourselves, and so we'll jump on and help you out. And then the final thing, know your geography. What's around you, right? What roads, what highways, what interstates and businesses are around you? Do you live next to the big chemical plant in town? Is the fertilizer plant west of town the place that you kind of recognize when things are coming? And then even nearby towns. If I live in Gibson City, growing up, I always knew, hey, if something's coming through Saybrook or Ellsworth or Colfax, places like that, that's the direction that storms might come here. And then as they pass, they might end up towards Elliott and Melvin, maybe towards Paxton. You kind of get familiar with that local geography to help you know the information as it comes on. Best place to go, if you've got a tornado shelter, a safe room, or a basement, that's where you want to head to if there is a tornado warning. Particularly tomorrow with some of our severe thunderstorm warnings, that may also be the case where you'll want to shelter from those because the wind could be strong enough to look like a weak tornado when they blow on through. Still, though, a great spot is an interior room, center part of your home. A bathroom with no windows is a great spot. Get in your bathtub, put some blankets, pillow fort on you. You want to avoid being in a car, no mobile homes, no open rooms, no manufactured housing, no big box stores, nothing like that. Those are places that can have some structural weaknesses to them from severe weather. And if you don't have a place to go for shelter, think about where you could head. Maybe you have a friend who has a sturdy building and say, hey, let's watch some TV and I'll bring a bottle of wine and snacks, right? I'm sure they'd let you come on over. You also can consider if you're in a structure that's not a safe place for severe weather, Well, head on over to the nearby gas station, the restaurant, the convenience store that's open late. Those places also can be a place that you can go for that there. So that is something to consider. How do you stay informed here? Well, review your emergency plans, our WCIA 3 weather app. Download that because you can get the latest forecast and updates on there. Also visit the website for more information. Then you got to prepare flooding, wind, hail, tornado. Think about those things. If you've got a trampoline outside, tie that puppy down, right? Make sure it doesn't blow around. Trash cans, put them up against the house. Any loose debris, just pick it up today, tomorrow before that wind gets, because the wind will be an issue as well, besides these severe thunderstorms. That's something to know, and then know your safe place and your plan for that. Where can I get these alerts? Here's some ideas for you. TV, if needed. We're on TV, right? You also can download the WCIA 3 weather app. Local radio stations often blare those announcements for alerts. Your NOAA weather radio, our weather call, a great way to get that. Also wireless emergency alerts, great to get that too. I wouldn't count on outdoor warning sirens. Couple of things about that. One, storms are moving so quickly, you need that extra advance notice. And number two, if you're sleeping, do you live next to them? Then maybe you'll wake up. Do you live farther away? Well, then maybe you're going to be okay, right? You know, with the sirens if you're close, but if you're farther away, you might not hear them. So you want that other thing. And then don't count on Facebook and X for up-to-date information. Sometimes the algorithms will hide things, but that is something that we tend to do here across the region. We do want to talk here real quick when we deal with a tornado warning, weather call, a great way to get weather service here. That's something that you can look at. WCIA.com/weather/weather call, the place to go for that. And if you're in that warning, if you're even 5 feet in that tornado warning polygon, you get the call. If you're outside of it, you don't get the call. Great service to have. We will literally send you a phone call when there is a warning issued for your place. A lot of people, when storms are late at night, they want that assurance. Weather call is there for you. There's a small annual fee attached to that. It's less than a fast food meal for many places around here. So that's something to consider as we move on through. Let's jump in now and talk more about our severe weather threat here. First off, a really strong low pressure system is developing. It's stayed pretty consistent and has shown that strength as it's been moving on through. It's going to arrive here Friday night into Saturday morning. While we're watching the severe storm threat here, ahead of it and even behind it, there's going to be strong winds, a really strong pressure gradient coming with this here. And so that's going to be something that we have to keep an eye on. Also going to be more intense severe weather. We think we're going to have it pretty rough. I think our friends in the deep south, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, Tennessee, are really on Saturday in some trouble areas as well here. And so it's going to be a pretty big event where could be some severe weather and some stories that play out for a period of time beyond this. That does include here locally. Yes, we are under a moderate level risk, a 4 out of 5 on the scale in areas in red here. You can see I-57 pretty much to the west in that. Level 3 still there. You know, oh, I'm in the 3. I'm not in the worst of it. Things can still be really bad here. Oh, I'm in the 4. Oh, that looks awful. So you can still scrape through without things. Risk does not always equal outcome, right? Within the risk area, though, is where we expect to see the most reports of severe weather. And so that is something to consider here is, you know, we're looking at the coverage of it, more widespread chance for strong straight line winds and even a few tornadoes. That decreases a little bit here, but still anyone in our WCIA 3 coverage area, really anyone in the state of Illinois, needs to be weather aware tomorrow evening into tomorrow night. What are the impacts? That moderate risk, a lot of times people think, oh, that's going to be a tornado outbreak. It's going to be, you know, a big problem. This is actually a wind-driven moderate risk here, where the wind is the biggest problem, and the concern for straight-line winds being more on that widespread nature allows for that risk to be higher here. And so that's going to be what most of us see. That tornado threat, we're keeping it at medium here. There is some uncertainty. A couple of things could play out, and I'll show you what we're thinking on future track here coming up. It's not zero. Is it a big-time problem? Not necessarily. Could it turn that way? That's still on the table. We've got to watch those finer details here over the next 12 to 24 hours to assess more about that tornado threat. But a lot more of you going to see the wind compared to the tornado. We'll just say that. I know that the tornadoes are what people are most worried about. If you get 90-mile-an-hour straight-line winds coming down your street, and that takes down a bunch of trees and damages your roof, that's not much different than a weak tornado, right? And so the wind is the big problem with this. the tornado for some of us could also be a bit of an issue. And so we'll keep an eye on that here as we move on through. So here's the damaging wind risk. You can see in the color scale, we're really getting up there, right? Especially in this pink area where that highest risk for damaging winds will be. Champaign, Mattoon, Charleston, Effingham to the west, including Springfield, Decatur, Taylorville, and Jacksonville. And when we're talking about the wind, we're talking about straight line winds that are blowing out ahead of those thunderstorms, right? That wind is moving in a straight line. And so that's a concern for us here. We think that there will be some pockets and some spots here and there where we've got an issue for that. That's, there will still be some areas that are fine, right? This isn't I don't see this as a big broom just sweeping everyone and knocking trees down everywhere, but we'll have some problem sections and areas based on storms moving on through. Some of you will get through this and be like, there wasn't any wind at that from those storms, and others of you will kind of be like, oh yeah, that was pretty rough out there. We're going to have to clean up into Saturday and Sunday here. Now, this is my max wind gust risk. I think widespread 60-plus gusts are expected across the area. We likely get some pockets of 70 to 75, and I wouldn't discount some gusts in the 80s in a few spots here. I'm not confident enough to bring this up anymore. We'll see if Kevin makes that call this evening with Seth. We'll see how that plays out, but going to watch just really area-wide for that stronger risk. And we're talking 75 to 70 here. We're still high up in that scale. Some folks in Vermilion County may be saying, I'm not in the worst of it. Well, maybe you're 70-mile-an-hour wind compared to a 75-mile-an-hour gust down the road in Champaign. I don't think that's going to do a whole lot different for us here. You're still going to have some problems if those gusts move on through your area. We look at the timing here. This has been pretty consistent. Haven't had any issues with that. We're in that 7 to 10 p.m. range here for Jacksonville, areas west of Springfield. 8 to 11 comes through Springfield, Taylorville, Decatur, and Bloomington. We get to the 9 p.m. hour, then we're going to start opening that window of opportunity through 1 a.m. for the I-57 corridor, and then I've got 11 p.m. till 3 a.m. for folks along the Indiana border and into Indiana there. And so that's the most likely timing where we watch the severe thunderstorms roll on through. Is it one big sweeping line? Is it more sections? That's still, the jury's still out on that, but that's something that we're going to keep a close eye on here as we move on through. Also, we'll check this out perhaps and see if this fixes itself. Looks like, let me just reset the graphics in the computer here. It's getting a little excited and jumping ahead, and that's okay. I'm going to show you the statewide timing, kind of give you an idea on that here. Of course, my computer is just kind of jazzing out a little bit on me. There we go. There's that state timing here. We'll see those storms by 7 p.m. moving across the Mississippi River. They will be moving really fast, too. Sometimes we get storms that are moving 30, 40 miles an hour. That could be an issue. They move pretty quick. These will probably more move in the 60 to 70 mile per hour. So think of when you're driving on the interstate. Think of how fast it takes you to get from Springfield to Decatur, or Decatur to Champaign, or Champaign to Danville. That's the type of speed that these storms will be moving, and so the lead times on these events are sometimes a little lower because of that, and they'll issue those warnings a lot further out to account for that. And so that's a consideration here. But you can see here then we're getting across that I-57 corridor, 9, 10, 11 p.m., and pushing things out pretty quickly here into Indiana. We see these storms, I think, move from southwest to northeast up here. If there was some stronger winds, I'm suspicious about western Illinois into northern Illinois. Not certain here quite how it's going to evolve exactly in central Illinois. Do we keep that strong straight line? Do things start to break apart and become more individualized? Going to keep a close eye on that as we move on through here. Here's why the wind is the big problem with this system as it's coming our way. First off, in the atmosphere, this is a low pressure system that has really strong atmospheric dynamics in place. And it looks like my data not updating. Right here you can see these white lines that are really tight. There should be some colored contours under there. They may pop up in a second here. Sometimes that data lags a little bit, but that tight contour means there's really strong winds aloft overhead here in Illinois. And that can be an issue for us where those strong winds aloft can mix down to the surface here, and we can get those 70, 80 mile an hour gusts in some spots. That is on the table for us as things move on through. One of the things we have to watch is how much fuel actually ends up here across the region. This is an event, there's a lot of dynamic energy aloft. For some of us, there's not a whole lot of fuel here at the surface. We're still on the lower side of things. Because the dynamics are so impressive, you don't need a lot of fuel to mix those winds down at the surface. You don't need a lot of that. But we may see Friday evening after 7 p.m. a thin ribbon of some more instability sneak north here, and we'll see how far in that can get. Does that make it far enough north into our area? we'll see. That's still enough where we could have wind and even a few tornadoes in central Illinois. But my attention is caught to more southern Illinois, where maybe a bit of a higher tornado risk could develop down there. That also depended on storm mode. What I mean by that, is it a line? Are they more individual storms like supercells? If it's something like that plays out down there, then there could be some problems for Carbondale, Marion, Harrisburg, down towards Metropolis, Paducah, and places like that. So whereas we kind of are in that fast-moving line, still some questions on if it's going to break apart here. Now, our tornado risk, this gets a lot of folks' attention, and rightfully so. Tornadoes are scary, right? They could be fast and spin up and cause a lot of damage in a short period of time, but this is not the main risk that we have. It is the straight line winds that a lot more of us will feel. However, within the straight line winds, especially with these fast-moving storms with upper-level dynamics that are just absolutely rocking here, we can still see within that line circulations develop and tornadoes develop from that here. It is possible that we could get a sustained circulation or within the line an embedded supercell thunderstorm or two somewhere in the area. Where exactly? Do I have a favorite zone? Not really, beyond the point that we do have it at a 6 out of 10 here for areas in orange. Again, that's kind of where that moderate risk is, right? Champaign, I-57 points to the west. Do I think this goes up? I don't think a whole lot. We'll see. There may be some areas where we start to see a higher zone in southern Illinois. We'll see if that happens, but at this point I think we could just count on there being strong straight line winds with lines and clusters of thunderstorms. There could be some embedded circulations that produce tornadoes. If we get individual storms, then that tornado threat would go up pretty quickly here, and that's something that we just have to watch. We don't really know how that evolves until storms start to form and move on through. We go from forecasting to more nowcasting. Storms are here. They're moving in this direction. We're seeing this. It's breaking apart. That may allow for more tornado action to occur here. For the most part here, it looks like maybe my data has just gone offline, and so let me refresh this real fast. And it wasn't showing the actual precip there. So what I want to do is get the latest run and see if that'll load for me. There we go. Okay. Sorry about that. After the show, something we're looking at here. Reset that there. When we talk about the storm system coming on through, we'll see a big line in the west of us coming in our direction. It's not like we have to wait for it to develop overhead. Storms develop in Missouri, Iowa, far western Illinois, and they move in our direction. Through the day Friday, morning, midday, afternoon commute home, school's done, no problems from severe weather. It's into the evening that those issues begin to pick up here. Notice by 8 o'clock, this squall line is moving in our direction here, and we'll see it move in. Looks like 9 to 10, Springfield, Decatur, Taterville, and that's a pretty solid line there. Because those upper atmospheric dynamics are also so strong, it means that we may not have to worry too much about, let me rephrase that. Because it's so strong, it means we may not see the radar showing the most intense looking thing ever, but still we're mixing down really strong winds with that. That's on the table with this type of thing. You can see here to midnight showing up on the I-57 corridor, and then into after midnight pushing that to the east. Some things stand out to me here, and we try and see more of these clusters maybe trying to break apart. What does that mean? Well, it could mean a couple of things, but it's something we have to watch where if we get a broken spot or where maybe one section of the line kind of ends up ahead of the other here, you can get a little circulation within that, and that's kind of what I think Future Track has been teasing. And it puts those storms all the way into Indiana as well, so that is something to consider. That's the severe weather risk. Kind of resetting that before we talk about the other problems we have. First off, wind is the main threat, straight line winds. Lots of folks think this is tornadoes. Oh man, oh boy, right? It's the wind that would be the bigger deal for many of us here. There is a tornado threat. Are we sold on it yet? No. Do we think it could be a problem? Yeah, it could. That's the honest truth. Do we know for sure? We don't. A lot of times we have to wait for when we get these lines and, hey, it's favorable for this, but until the line gets there, you sometimes don't know if that tornado threat's going to materialize more or less. A great example of that is going back to December 10th, 2021, even March 31st, 2023. We saw that line of storms coming. Okay, we're going to start watching things really closely there. In Sangamon County, that Sherman and the storm in Riverton, both of those, they started to pick up pretty quickly in intensity there. and then we were able to follow those and see where they were heading. Other areas still had wind damage, but we had a couple of problem spots that produced tornadoes through the area. Something like that, maybe on the table. Could we end up with no tornadoes? Sure, that's on the table. Could the wind not be as strong? Yeah, that's also on the table here. I think that window of opportunity may be getting lower and lower as we get closer. And there will still be some areas that have no problems with these storms moving on through. There will be other areas, though, that could have a rough time and some cleanup once everything is said and done. So that kind of capitalizes on that. The severe winds with the storms are a problem, but wind is a problem throughout this entire system here. Here's our weather alerts. You're going to see a wind advisory pop up from across the area, and that's for Friday into Saturday. Starting Friday afternoon, that wind really starts to pick up, and we'll see strong non-thunderstorm winds on a sunny day, clear sky, where wind gusts 40 to 50 mile an hour are on the table. And then we do have a high wind watch for Livingston County and then up into northeastern Illinois, the Chicago metro. That's in place mainly for Saturday after the storms have moved on through the area. Let's walk through those wind gusts now, and let me just kind of back that up a little bit more for you here. Notice we start in the morning, there's a breeze, right? 20, 25 gusts, but it continues to pick up. By the afternoon, we've got strong south winds of 40 to 50 miles an hour. Thunderstorms are still hours away, but we've got intense strong winds that are out there, and that can be a problem. Then we get to the evening hours. As storms start to approach here, that wind even picks up even more. Without the help from thunderstorms, we've got wind gusts of 50 plus miles an hour in some spots here. It doesn't take much to add on to that wind and get that wind to 60, 70, maybe a little higher than that. And so a lot of wind energy without the thunderstorms moving on through. Through the night, storms have exited, still a south wind Saturday morning. South wind gusts afterwards in the 35 to 45 mile an hour range, and those may pick up then during the day. 8 p.m. until 5 p.m. Saturday may be our strongest wind yet here into the area, not related to the severe thunderstorms Friday night. We could see some 55 to 60 mile an hour gusts north of I-74, I think, as that low departs, that gradient picks on up. South and west, the main direction of those winds there. Sunday, the wind comes down. Still be breezy, turns more to the north and west. Things do cool off, but we are not done yet. Monday, that wind picks right back up from the south and west here, so a windy period of days ahead for us, and that's going to be an issue that we have to deal with moving forward. The wind, of course, is a problem. It can take down trees itself, cause tree damage and power line damage, but what I think is a little bit of a problem is our fire weather danger from this here. We've had a lot of field fires. There's a couple happening now in Champaign County. Kind of looking at things here. Crews are getting out and trying to take care of these things and whatnot, so it's a problem. In fact, I might be able to see one right now from a camera. Let's see if we can turn our stadium camera here to potential fires south of Urbana. Give me a second here, and we'll just kind of see. I just saw a report come in through the newsroom of that, and a little hard to see. Maybe a little far away here. Bear with me, sorry. Just kind of checking some things out in our camera real fast. It's been a report of a fire south of town. I can't see anything in the camera too well. Doesn't mean it's not there. It may just be a little far for us to see. So that's something that is going on. But these field fires have been happening, keeping our firefighters busy. The wind picks up Friday and into Saturday. It's dry out there. The other thing about these lines of storms coming, this line, singular line of storms coming through, is that that line of storms is going to push through, and as it does so then, we're going to see where that line of storms moves through so quickly, it doesn't leave a lot of rain, right? There's not going to be a flooding threat because there may be 10, 15 minutes of heavy rain, and it exits, and that could drop a couple of tenths. Some spots, not much more than 1/4 of an inch. We could see some half-inch numbers and higher in a few areas, but it's moving so quickly, we're not getting a soaking rain to tamper things down, and that wind is going to just help to keep things pretty dry. Plus, the vegetation on top of the ground, dormant, right? Farm fields full of stubble. They haven't quite plowed things for the spring yet, and so that means that fire weather index may go high into the weekend for us here. And you can see my fire weather forecast showing up. We're going with high for Friday and Saturday. There is a fire weather watch that's been issued for a good part of central Illinois. That's likely to turn to a fire weather warning, also known as a red flag warning, as we go to Friday and especially on Saturday when I think things could be the worst. We'll see how much rain we get, but I think there's a potential that we may not get all that much more rain out of this to help things out. And so, the soil is dry. dormant vegetation, strong winds, fires can get out of hand quickly. So my advice is no burning. You see smoke, you got to report it, right? We don't want our firefighters to have issues from things like that. Now the wind is a problem, and we look at those farm fields. Yes, they've got some crop residue coverage on them, right? They harvested, they left the corn stubble and the bean stubble on there. That's kind of holding in, all that roots are holding in the soil. For the most part, I think that's going to keep blowing dust from being an issue. However, there may be an occasional farm field or two where they've plowed things over and they've left it that way from the spring. It's very individualized. There may be the potential for some blowing dust again Friday and Saturday, with that even being the case here. So just keep that in mind. That's something else that could materialize from this here. That best chance, I think, maybe is where those winds are strongest on Saturday, north of Champaign, north of Decatur. But also, you typically don't see here in central Illinois, like in the 1930s, wall of dust coming across and big problems. We're more seeing individual spots here and there that, a farm field particular could just be susceptible. There's a lot of silt in it. That silt can be picked up. It's very fine and blow in the wind. Now you got blowing dust, and it happens to be blowing across a specific road, and that can cause problems there. So just keep that in the back of your mind. That could be something that we have to watch and something we have to deal with everything going on. Let me recap one last time our severe weather risk as we finish the fire and blowing dust, and then we'll wrap things up with questions. And so if you're watching and you've got a specific question, something going on, the other consideration is the University of Illinois does go on spring break. So we're going to have to talk more about that coming up, kind of keep an eye. If you got someone who's at U of I, you're kind of thinking, hey, I got a kid coming home from college. What time should they go? If they're going west at all, they might want to watch out. If they leave Champaign to go north or east by 5 p.m. looks good. Earlier the better to go south, as they want to beat those storms home. And if they're heading down to deep south, Gulf Coast, places like that, you really want to watch out with that particular threat that's developing Saturday south of us here. So we'll keep you updated on that. Just something to think about. It's a moderate risk. We've had moderate risks, right? You've lived through them. We've been through them. This is a wind-driven moderate risk, not a tornado-driven moderate risk. Though a tornado threat does exist there, that's something that we're going to keep an eye on as things move forth. You can see here the wind threat is high from this, where we could have some 70, 80 mile an hour wind gusts, and then that tornado threat still there, medium. I think the hail threat, I should say, is lower. We could still get some spots of large hail, especially initially, but that may be out of our viewing area. And then we'll see if there's any individual cells or individual supercell thunderstorms that can sustain themselves. But I'm not really too worried about a hail threat. When we've got these other problems, you're still going to take action that would be the same thing for hail. So we'll watch and see how that shakes out. But the wind threat is going to be something that we have to watch. Here's that wind threat on the wind risk on the graphics here. We're moving up this scale, right? We're up in that pink for a good portion of our area. And those wind gusts likely to exceed 75 mile an hour gusts in a few spots, 70 to 75. There will be some areas that miss out. There will be some areas that get hit hard. There will be some areas that just have some 50 to 60 mile an hour gusts. And remember, this is the thunderstorm winds. It's going to be windy anyways as we look Friday evening before storms, Friday afternoon, evening, and then Friday night late into Saturday and Saturday evening. The wind's still going to be strong in the backside as well there with that particular event. And then finally, I'll show you the timing graphic, and we'll kind of wrap things up here with any questions that you have. So here's the timing graphic for our viewing area. There we go. There it pops up there. We're going with that 7 to 10 for Jacksonville, 8 to 11 from Springfield to Decatur, Taterville, Lincoln, Bloomington. This is the time you should be ready to take shelter, perhaps, if a warning was issued for your area. You can keep an eye on it before, and I tend to think once it passes by, then the severe weather threat's over. So once you've got to shelter, you're getting you all clear, you can go bed if you don't have other things to worry about. So we'll keep an eye on this. And this is not the worst storm we've ever had. Yeah, it's going to be rough for some of us, and each person will have a different experience with those storms, but we have the potential to have some problems with that, and so that's why we're kind of spending some time here talking about things. So with that, that's going to wrap up anything that I've got. I'm going to kind of scroll back as far as I can, see if there's any questions, and then we will go from there and check things out. So I'm going to open my Facebook and see what happened. Make sure we don't have any of those there. Okay, good questions are coming in on there. A lot of you folks are on. Appreciate that. Got Farmer City and Whiteheath, Ford County checking in, hearing things. Here's a good thing. There are some pages and there are some places that will be like, you gotta freak out. It's the biggest storm ever, the most severe storm. You know, they say that about everything, right? You don't have to freak out about it, but you've got a plan, right? We live in Illinois. In the springtime, sometimes the weather's a little bit around here. Sometimes the severe weather threat can be a little unfun, but we'll get through it, right? That's what we're here for. We're going to walk you through it and keep an eye on things. So you don't need to freak out. My phrasing I like to use is be prepared, not scared, right? Have your plan, know what you're going to do, and then you got nothing to worry about. And you're just waiting for that notice to go to shelter. Then you head there, ride it out. Afterwards, you can go to bed, have a good Friday night there at the area. Tasha is asking about, or she's saying she has anxiety mostly because of no shelter. Yeah, that is something that is a concern. You know, if you don't have a shelter, think about where you could go. A friend, a relative, bring a snack and a drink to share. You can watch us if there's coverage. You know, maybe you say, hey, if it gets bad, you know, watch 40, 50 miles west of you. So if you're in I-57, you know, if you're in this teal area here, you kind of want to watch here. If you're in this gray area, you want to watch here. If you're in this blue area, you kind of want to watch out here. You know, kind of watch the next category over, you know, county or two to your west. And if you need some time to get somewhere, say, hey, if those storms are, you know, I'm here in Mattoon. If it's looking real bad in Taylorville and it's coming our way, you know, maybe I'm going to go hang out with my friend or a family or a relative. You could also think of a late night restaurant, you know, a gas station, convenience store, and hunker down there. Their walk-in coolers are available, you know, are there. You know, they should let you in if you're there and whatnot. Avoid big box marts. Don't go to a big box store with an open span ceiling or a gymnasium, any place like that. You know, but someplace that you can shelter sturdy if you happen to be in that. I know sometimes some of our big box stores are open late. You don't want to be in the middle of them. You actually want to be in the restroom area. And so that's a place you want to go because you want to keep that roof from having to fall on you if you end up in a place like that. And I'm not saying that because I think that's going to happen. I think it's good knowledge to have, to think about things like that for the area. We do get folks here that are watching up at Kewanee. I tell you what, you know, Kewanee, you're probably more that wind threat. There may be a slightly higher tornado risk even in that line arcs to the northwest. Up in northwest Illinois and eastern Iowa. We'll see how that evolves. That may be a hot spot there. Kewanee kind of sits out here. Chris Yates over at WMBD is a great guy. You could follow him, and he'll keep you updated up there. I've heard this word tossed around a lot. Could this be classified as a derecho? Derecho is kind of a dirty word. People hear that, and they're going to instantly think back to the big derecho we had a couple years ago. Not all derechos are the same. You just have to meet the minimum criteria, and then it's a derecho, whether it's just barely over that or it's way over that. 2 years ago, we hit that criteria and we went way over it. We had an extreme, intense derecho that came on through. Could this be one? Sure, I'll say that. I'm not really talking about that because I don't think that's something that is helpful to the conversation. I don't think it adds any value. 75, 80 mile an hour wind gusts, tornado risk, that's going to happen in a derecho or not. And the derecho has to be classified after the fact. They'll go back and look, well, how long did it travel? How long are the wind reports? It's got to be like 200 miles and several significant wind gusts over 75 mile an hour and potential gust over 100. Do we hit that? We'll see. So I think that kind of sometimes maybe is more of a hype term and a freak out term than it is a helpful term here. And so you're not going to hear me saying, derecho coming, because everyone's thinking back to the summer of 2023 when central Illinois got pummeled by that derecho that came on through. I just don't think that's helpful for the conversation. But yeah, in all honesty, we could see a section of the line where it meets that criteria to be considered that here. Ethan's asking about an upgrade. I don't think so. I'm not really worried about that at this point. You know, I think we're pretty good with our forecast. Even before we got the moderate risk upgrade, we were pretty in line with what we were thinking. Those upgrades as well are not necessarily based on intensity. They're based on coverage. So if you're in a level 4, you're looking at widespread. And you're still looking at the potential for intense storms here too. But compared to a slight risk is more scattered storms here and there. More widespread, the confidence is higher with those moderate risks and up from there. Some folks are kind of asking about, specific areas, or I'm really worried. Again, if you've got plans, you've got an idea of what you're going to do, I think you're going to be good on that to stay informed and stay updated. Taylor kind of asking about the tornado threat. Medium is so in the middle, it's hard to go on it. Yeah, and I get that as well. We kind of use that number scale as a way to do that here to differentiate. So you see, while on this graphic that's going to pop up, it's in the middle, in the medium. We look at a scale from 0 to 100. Where does it fall? Kind of somewhere in the middle here. This is a way for us to differentiate. Main threat, this. Next threat, that. Threat beyond that, that. Not really worried about that, right? And so that's kind of the way to think about that. You're probably more interested in the scale that we use, the tornado risk. It's a scale that's relative to our experiences here in Central Illinois. We are at a 6 on the scale right now, and that's for areas in orange. We talk about a 1. Those are low-end days. There might be a butterfly that flapped its wings and something spun up, but not really worried. 2, 3s, those are marginal risk days. Can't rule it out. We've had some days with 2s, 3s that have produced tornadoes. We've had some days with 4, 5s that have not produced tornadoes. We start to get to that 6, 7, and that concern does get a little bit higher here. We're at a 6 now. Maybe tomorrow if we wake up, or tomorrow afternoon, we may need to adjust that upwards, but I'm not confident in that at this point. I don't think it goes down. Probably 6 is a good estimate, a 6 out of 10, if that makes sense, relative to what we've had. 6 out of 10, and here's actually what I'll do is I have a scale for it. So let me see if I have the graphic. I may have to go searching for it. I think I got to go searching for it. This graphic might help you explain that a little bit more when I find it here, of what this scale means. So it's going to take me a minute here because I got about 1 billion graphics in my thing. And here we go. This is kind of that scale. So we derive our scale based on the storm predictions in our outlook. 10% chance. 5% chance. Those are pretty high chances compared to normal here, but it doesn't provide a lot of value and meaning for the average listener. And so when we look at our tornado risk scale, this kind of gives you an idea of where we're at. If we have any marginal risk, we just give it a 1. Never say never. The SBC gives a 2% risk. Some of you are a little more statistician-minded, statistics, things like that, kind of probably get this. You get that 2, 3, a few possible, maybe check back a few times just to make sure. 4, 5, pretty standard event for us here. We get a few tornadoes, some routine updates. Yeah, we get some severe weather risk at 4, 5. That's happened before. Once you get to the 6, 7, we're talking about several tornadoes may be more likely. Strong tornadoes become more possible when we get to that orange level there. You might think about altering your plans in a scenario like that if it's a tornado-driven risk. With the wind threat, I really think you should anyways, but this kind of gives you an idea here. When you get to the 8, 9, we're talking, strong tornadoes, tornado outbreak, think like November 17th, I think would have qualified as a 9 or maybe a 10 if I go back and look. When we get to 10, it's pretty rare to have that happen, So we're not quite to the cancel your plans and hunker down, but you want to think about what you're going to do Friday evening. And if you do go out, where are you going to go? So that's something to kind of maybe provide some relative reference here. You can find this, I believe it's posted on our Severe Weather Center, but it kind of explains more about our scale and how it corresponds here. I think we hit a 10 in parts of our area. I think it was like Beardstown, because in Northwest Illinois that risk was higher. We were on March 31st, we were at a 8, 9, I think. And then I think when Mattoon, the Gaze-Windsor tornado happened, I think we were at a 7. We might have been at an 8 there. I cannot remember how far north that 15% risk went. It may have included down there, but we were kind of in this area for that. So we're kind of entering in that level, but there's bigger events tended to have bigger numbers. And also know that this is a forecast. It's relative. We'll see how this actually shakes out, and we're going to follow it. Just because we're only at a 6 doesn't mean we can't get a tornado to hit a big population center. We've had that happen in days when we've had a 1, 2, 3 here. This is a relative risk for things like that. So that's something to kind of consider. So does that make sense, right? Smell what I'm stepping in? Good. Keep those questions up here, and then I'm going to wrap things up. Temperatures, yeah, it's going to be warm. We're going to be near 80 tomorrow, and even on Saturday it's going to be warm. We'll be seeing 60s and 70s out there across the region. That is a concern. Marcus is saying he heard 100-mile-an-hour winds. It kind of clarified that. Can there be a spot or two that has that? Sure. I mean, that can happen. There were some posts that went out where people were talking about jet stream winds. Jet stream, a couple miles up has winds of 100 to 120. That's a couple miles up, right? You mix that wind down, it's obviously not going to be as strong because it's kind of diverting downward here, and so you can have those wind gusts be less than that in those scenarios, and that's kind of why we're in that 70 to 80 for us here. But you know, I think oftentimes when people hear 100-mile-an-hour winds, they think it's coming their back door. This here will probably, there we go, right here, there we are. This will probably be, you know, an isolated case here and there. More of us in the 60s, some of us in the 70s, a few of us in the 80s. Could we get one or two at that level? Yeah, that's possible. So I tend to try and shy away from that. And at the end of the day, 80 versus 90, you know, 70 versus 75, not much difference with the damage that can come from that here. Kind of checking things out here. Bruce was kind of asking about rain. We're not getting much, a couple tenths. I mean, it's a fast-moving line, so it doesn't stay over any one spot for a long period of time. There may be a rough 10, 15 minutes tomorrow evening. Everything else is pretty fine when that happens, and Chad's going to ask it in and out quickly. Yeah, that line will be moving at highway speed. It's moving in a hurry here to get on out. That's about the bottom there. And so that kind of gives us a little idea of what's going on. Chief Meteorologist Kevin Leidy and Meteorologist Seth Bonoff will be here this afternoon. They will be having updates for you online and on air, and then I'll be back tomorrow in the morning. We're still trying to figure out what our staffing looks like. I know all of us will be a part of it, but who's going where? We'll kind of keep you updated on that. And then tomorrow evening, 7 p.m. till 2 a.m., somewhere in that range, we'll have severe storms roll on through with wind the main threat. The potential for a tornado, a strong tornado, not out of the question, also is there. I don't think it's something that you need to get all worked up about. Just have a plan. It's spring, right? We live in Illinois. This could be a big part of that plan here. Weather Call is a great resource to have, and I think I have the ability to actually send you the thing. You'll see it in the chat box, Weather Call here, as an option for you to sign up for. It's covering my face there, isn't it? Weather Call is a great way to get weather alerts. You get a phone call from us as soon as a warning is issued for your location, and that'll give you a clue. Oh, something's up. I got to tune in. You know, Kevin and Jacob and Seth and Adam are going to be on TV. You know, I'm sleeping and it wakes me up in the middle of the night when that tornado risk is only a 2 or a 3. Great, you got that safety information, right? It is like a smoke detector for thunderstorms. That, NOAA weather radios, weather apps, all different ways. That weather call is location specific. It is based solely on where your home address is or the address of your choice. Some of you may say, I want to sign it up for my kids in college. I want to sign it up for my parents who are getting older, and you know, I want to be able to have them get a phone call as opposed to rely on text messages, sirens, things like that. And it's for, you know, about $1 a month, and if not a little bit more than that. Quick math, but $1.25 a month. I mean, that's a pretty good deal. You drop $40 for a weather radio here, so you know that you know, $1-ish a month, not all that big of a deal there. And then finally, download our app as well. That's another way. We encourage you to have more than one way. So if, for some reason, like in Newton County, the NOAA weather radio goes down, what else are you going to use? Weather call, NOAA weather radio, our weather app, watching on TV, listening to the radio, all different things that you can do to stay up to date. That's going to end this. Thanks for being here, and we will see you back with Kevin and Seth for updates.